So today what I'm going to show you is one of our new favorite recipes that we have just been making all the time. And it's your own homemade kraut or fermented cabbage. And I keep it simple. I've tried to complicate it with various ingredients, but I found that the one ingredient kraut is the best, for us at least. So it's very simple ingredients. You're just going to need cabbage, and I use the red cabbage. And you're going to need sea salt. You can use kosher salt, but it comes out better if it's with sea salt. You're also going to need a mason jar. And when I first started making these, I would just use half a cabbage, and now we've tripled it. And my mason jar was smaller. So you may want to start off small and see if you like it, and then get to the big one. So I'm using this large mason jar. I'm also using a top that has really helped with my fermenting, and it screws on to the jar, and it's got an air pump, and it sucks out the air, and it's called the Easy Fermenter, and I bought this off of eBay, and it's really made my life easy. And plus it has numbers around the top there, and you can say what date you're starting your kraut, and that helps so you don't forget. So what you're going to need is your cabbage, and we're going to chop our cabbage. I like hand chopping it, but if you want, you can use your food processor, your slicer, or your, whatever you want to use, or you can use a mandolin. So you have lots of options, but I prefer hand chopping it. And so what I like to do is I will cut it into fours, and then I will cut out the center. And you want to save this because that's going to be a weight that you're going to place on top. And then I also save one of the leaves of each of these cabbage corners. So I'm going to just take one of these off and just save that to the side because we're going to use that on the top. And then I just use a bowl. Now the way it goes is it's every pound of chopped cabbage, you put 1 teaspoon of salt. At least the recipe that I'm using calls that. And I kind of have eyeballed how much a pound of cabbage is. And then I just start cutting it really thin. So you'll see that these are really thin slices. You can go thicker. It depends on how thin you want to cut your cabbage. And so I'll just chop it like this. And I'll do the one corner so you can see it. And then I'll turn it, and I'll just chop it once down the middle. Like I said, you can make this as small or as thick as you want. And then I just put it in this bowl here. And so I'm going to go ahead and chop all of my cabbage and then show you what I do next. Okay, so I had to bring another bowl into the picture here because this was just overflowing. And so you're probably wondering how I'm going to fit all this in here. Well, I'm going to make it happen, and you're going to watch. Okay, so now I'm going to add my salt, and this came to about 4.5 pounds of cabbage, and so I'm going to add 4. Okay, and then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to massage the salt into the cabbage, and this takes about 10 minutes of just massaging and just crunching it and rubbing it in your hands like this. And you're going to notice that your cabbage is going to start getting really wet. And that's the salt sucking out all the waters. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay, so it's been 10 minutes. And as you can see, the sauerkraut, I mixed in the other batch into one now because it fits in this big bowl. And it's definitely all shiny and wet. And what I like to do is I like to just pat it down and let it sit for about an hour before I start putting it in my jar. Okay, so it's been about an hour, and as you can see, it's really wet and it's softened up. And so now what I want to do is I want to put it in my clean jar. You want to make sure your jar's clean. And this is going to release a lot of water. And so I'm just going to fill up. I'm going to put it 1 or 2 handfuls at a time. And then as it's filling, I'm going to take this, which came with my Vitamix. It's the little stomper. And it works perfectly for this. And so what you want to do is, here I'll move this so you can see it clear, is you want to really smush it down. And as you smush it, you'll see those water bubbles that are producing. And so you want to just make this as compact as possible. And so I'll do this about 2 or 3 rounds of just pushing it down and compacting it really, really tight. Okay, so I filled it halfway and I just put another clump, and you'll notice now, see all that juice? That's all the water from the cabbage. I have not added any water to this. And what you want to try and do is just get rid of all the air bubbles in there. And that's basically what I'm doing. So I will just keep pushing down. Now I'm going to put the last clump, and you'll see there's water that's collected here. It's from the cabbage. And I'm just going to put the last layer, and I'm going to add all those juices, everything in here. And I'm going to do a final press to make sure it's all pushed down. And you can see all that water that's come up. And now you'll notice there's some little floating pieces here. Now that's why we're going to use the cabbage middle. And I'm just going to push those down. And that'll keep those little chunks down. And you may not have to use all of them. And then lastly, remember those cabbage leaves that I told you to save? Well, we're going to place those on top. Just push it down. And now what you want to do is you want to just wipe off the seal here. Just wipe it off. Now I'm going to put my top on. I'm going to tighten it. And I'm just going to do 2 pumps. That's all you need. Because the carbon dioxide is going to be pushing out all the oxygen that's left. And that's what's going to ferment your cabbage. And then I'm going to leave this on a dish. I'm going to clean it off with water. And I'll show you how I put it in my dish. Okay, so it's done. Now I cleaned it off and I set it on a dish that has a lid because this is going to overflow. And so every morning for the next 5 mornings, I'm going to just keep tipping off the water and rinsing off the top. And then on the 5th day, you open it up and you have kraut. This is what your kraut would look like after it's been fermented for about a week. This is what's left of our other kraut. But it's delicious, crunchy.